Shalom, beloveds of the King. I greet you on this beautiful day of the third day as we have entered into the month of Elul. And I greet you here from the Negev, from the wilderness, which truly has been a wilderness in my life. And when I look back and I stand in awe of a year ago, more than a year ago, that Abba has brought us into Eretz Israel. And, sometimes we come into our promise. This is the promised land. But wow, I have truly understood that this promised land is a land that's going to crush you first before you can get the promise. And isn't that real of everything? Isn't that real of if we take grapes? Grapes have to be crushed in order for us to be able to get the choicest grape juice out of it. Olives need to be pressed in order for us to be able to get the wonderful olive oil that comes out of it. A lemon needs to be squeezed in order for us to be able to get that wonderful lemon juice that comes out of it. And this is what I've understood. There is nothing that's going to come forth if it hasn't been pressed. And so I am reminded so many times of that olive press of when we go to Nazareth village, and I look at that olive press and how that donkey would go around and press the olives, and to be able to bring forth that wonderful virgin olive oil that comes forth. And so for Father to be able to allow us to be the anointed, set apart children that He's created us to be for the hour, for the time, there is no anointing without there be pressing. And that's why I can just smile when people, sometimes want to rub shoulders with this one and rub shoulders with that one, thinking that they can just get that anointing. No. We need to understand that anointing that comes forth from any person has come from a place of seclusion, has come from a place of pressing, has come from a place of where they have had to come aside and they have had to surrender and allow themselves to be able to go through the process that the Father has put them in. And so this is what I am really understanding. And yes, it's been a season. The season has changed. This is a new day, a new dawn, a new season. The month of Elul being a beautiful month, and we will talk a little bit about that. But the season, what's important is the season has changed. And that is where we are now entering into the season. This is the last month leading up to the 7th month, 1st of Tishri, of when we will celebrate the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah. And so there has been a process that we've been going through that's been from when we received the Ruach on Shavuot, and all the work that the Father wanted to do at the time of Shavuot was really that we would be able to receive His Ruach in a deeper way. And so that is why it's been a process from Shavuot until now. We've been in a process. And so this is a little bit of what I want to share today as we are getting ready to leave for Istanbul tomorrow, which we will be in Turkey, and then from there we will be going to Greece and just doing the Paul route. And I'm really praying that Abba will really give us great revelation in truly understanding the walk of Paul. because he is the most controversial man, I would say, that is in the Bible in terms of the times that we live in, because people love to quote Paul in being able to bring about a mindset of that it's, the Pauline gospel. And so we're really trusting Abba that he's going to really open up the mind of our understanding to make us understand that Paul was a Pharisee. A Pharisee taught by Gamaliel, but yet he came to Yeshua and understood the essence of what it was to be able to be filled with the Ruach and still walk out Abba's ways, but being filled with the Ruach. And so we trust Abba for that. And so as we're preparing to leave tomorrow, today, later this afternoon, we will be leaving for Jerusalem, which is where we will be, and sleep over in Jerusalem tonight to be able to leave tomorrow afternoon for the airport. And so the Father has been pressing on my heart that I was to put this message, just to give a message of this preparation time, and for us to understand prophetically the season that we are in, and that the season has changed, and that for you guys there in South Africa, it's a wonderful season as you see the end of winter and you're seeing the springtime and you're seeing the beautiful flowers. For us, we're coming into autumn, where we're starting to already feel the freshness of the air coming, in the evening and in the morning, and preparing for the fall feasts, preparing for this autumn time that we've come into, looking forward to the cooling down of this extreme heat that we have had. So before I start, I just want to pray, and then I want to start with just a song that just is such an encouragement to me, but also the song for the hour and the season that we are in. So let's just pray. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to praise and thank you in this day, Father. I thank you that you are the one that is holding each and every one of us in the palm of your hand. And thank you, Abba Father, that our processes are different, but yet the goal is the same. And the goal is to be able to be in that place of where we can finally come back into that place of the Garden of Eden, that we can just be so one with you and walk with you in the cool of the day, and that we can speak like Moshe did and say, show us your glory, show us your glory. Abba, we truly want to be those that will be able to see you face to face, that we may be able to prepare ourselves in order to be able to come into that place of where we can be so intimate with you that you would become the one that is exalted above everything in our lives, and that we would have eyes for nothing and no one except for you. And yes, Father, as each one of us has been put through the fire, and each one of us is going through an olive press, and that we are being pressurized like in a pressure cooker, almost waiting to be exploded. But Father, the explosion is something that will be beautiful, like the butterfly that needs to come forth when it's been in its cocoon for such a long time, going through its metamorphosis. And so I thank you, Abba, my Father, that in this time that we have in this month, where truly the King is in the field, and the King is looking and stretching out his hand, stretching out his ear to listen, and stretching out his hand to be able to touch. Father, I pray that this be a month of where you truly will become attentive to our cry, where you truly will help us to be able to do great introspection within our hearts, to be able to draw us ever closer to you, as truly we want to be those that will be able to do the great exploits that you have for us to do in these last days, as truly the world is becoming darker, but that we need to be those that will shine forth your light. Father, help us to be able to remove from our hearts all the hindrances that are there that would keep us from being able to walk with you. Father, everything that's keeping us and holding us back from being able to have your mind, to have your heart, to understand your heartbeat. Father, I pray that you will help us to be able to come and weed out of our hearts, weed out of our lives those things that are not of you. But Father, I pray that you would open up our hearts to us, open up our minds to us, open up those things that are there so that we may truly see as you see. And so I praise and I thank you, Father, that I commit this time to you. I commit this word to you. I pray that you alone would be the one to speak forth, that you alone would open up to your people what it is that you want to say, Father. So I just surrender myself completely to you, Father, allowing you to be able to be the one to speak forth what needs to be spoken. And so I praise and I thank you for this time. And I thank you for Yeshua HaMashiach, our Messiah, our King, the one who died for us, the one who smiles upon us in this time. And so I praise and I thank you for this in Yeshua's name. Amen. I just want to start off with a song that I believe is really a song for this hour, for this month of Elul, of where we understand this month of Elul being Ani le Dodi de Dodi li. I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine. From the Song of Songs 6 verse 3. And for us to understand Ani le Dodi de Dodi li, for us to be able to go deeper into this time of understanding, the preparation that we have to go into. So I just want to play the song as I was packing my bag yesterday. I was playing this. I was playing Sarah Jubilee and Lisa White's CD, and this song just spoke volumes in my heart. And I thought, wow, this is such a powerful song for this hour. And so may you be blessed with it as much as I was blessed. Amen. Praise Abba Father. What a beautiful song. A song that speaks so deep within my heart. Because this is exactly where I have been. Going through the fire. My fruit being tested. Because at the end of the day, this is what it's about. Why do we get put through the fire? The fire is to be able to purify so that you can come out like gold. And you go through this purification. I mean, for gold to be able to come forth, it must go through a process 7 times. And so there comes a time when we sit and we say to ourselves, oh my goodness, is this ever going to come to an end, Father? You know, and just when you think you have dealt with all these things, wow, the next fire comes again. And this is the purification process. But you see, that goldsmith will continue to put the purification process, has to keep going until he can see his reflection in that gold. So when he can finally see his reflection in that gold, the impurities have finally been removed. And you see, this is exactly what it is. You know, it had dawned on me, because it's interesting. Last year was the same. I was in this difficult place. And as we came to the time of Shavuot, as we came to the time of Yom Teruah, there was a shift that took place. And there was a breakthrough that happened. But when I was asked by Abba to go to Enkarim, and when I was asked to call down the fire, like the spirit of Elijah, when Elijah cried out to the prophets of Baal and called down the fire, that was what Father was asking me to do in Enkarim on the day of Yom Teruah last year. But you see, that fire was the purification of what was going to have to happen within the next year, of where, okay, let us look and see the impurities that are there that need to be purified. And who are you going to serve? Who are you going to serve? And I am going to show you the idols in your heart. I'm going to show you the things that are there that stand in my way of me being able to do the work that needs to be done. And you see, you know, it's wonderful to do the prophetic work for the Father. But what we don't realize is that as I go forth and do this prophetic work, it's going to start with me. And straight after Yom Teruah last year, and straight after Tabernacles, and straight after I came home, those struggles started, and the real wilderness came my way. When I really started to be released into a fire that was going to scourge. I think I've cried more tears in this last year than I have cried in a long time. More tears has been cried, I think, since even that I got to Israel, than I have cried before. Because there is just so much that the Father starts to take you through, and that the Father starts to reveal. And at the end of the day, it's just like that teaching that Sarah Jubilee did in the time that she's in, when she too was being pressurized, when she too was in a difficult place. And like she says, she's in a test herself. But what was the Father wanting to do? Bring forth a character, bring forth a change of a mindset, bringing forth that which is going to be able to stand in the midst of the storm. Yes, the storm must come. Yes, the fire must come, because all those impurities need to be exposed, so that when those impurities get exposed, we are able to come before Abba Father and say, Father, look and see what is there. There's no good thing. There's no good thing. And these were the things that was happening from the time of the fall feasts last year. That's exactly what started happening. From the time that the fire was called down from in Karim, when the Father said, stretch out that staff that He gave me, and He said, call down the fire that's to come upon my remnant. Little did I know that that fire was a fire that when Elijah went to, when Elijah called down fire from heaven, it was on the altar. And that fire was to be, and He spoke to the children of Israel and He said to them, choose you this day whom you will serve. And that fire came, consumed the prophets of Baal. And so the fire that's got to come down has got to consume everything that is within us that is not of Him. And that is why many times we say that we serve Him. Yes, with our lips we serve Him. But many times with our actions, with our mindsets, with our hearts, we're not serving Him. And these are the things that He has to expose. And unless He puts you through the fire, unless He tests your fruit, because you see, the king is in the field. He's in the field in this last month that we are now entering. We've entered into this month of Elul, and the king is in the field. And what is the field that He's going to cultivate? That field is our heart, the field of our heart. And this is now when He is going to come, and He's doing this final process of what He wants to do, because the time that we're entering into now is a very significant time. It is an extremely significant time. It's the things that the Father has been speaking by the mouths of more than one prophet, of where He's really starting to speak, where He's wanting His kingdom to come on earth as it is in heaven, and where He is wanting to be able to raise up a people, a remnant, that now are going to need to come forth and are going to be able to be filled with His authority, with His power, with His glory, so that they can be able to go forth and do the great exploits that need to be done on this earth. But I tell you now, this cannot be without there being a refining. And yes, praise Abba Father, because in the song how it says that spring has come. So it's like we have been in, there's some of us that have been in such turmoil, and we've been in this winter, and it's been dark, and it's been this place of where we're crying out to Him, and it's in a parched land, in a dry, parched land, but yet there's springs of living water. And this is when you realize, in the midst of all of this, that I am my beloved's, and my beloved's is mine. There is nothing that you desire more. When you finally get to the place of when you can lay it all down, when you finally get to the place that you realize, wow, what is it all about? It's all about Him anyway. And so you see this difficult place where Father already started, as we came back to South Africa last year in October, and my goodness, over that time of when it was also entering my 49th year of my birthday, as this year I'm in my Jubilee, entering into my 50th year coming up now at the time of Sukkot. And wow, I was going to be in the fire for the very things that I was craving in my heart, for the very things that He was going to expose, those desires that I had in my heart. I didn't want to be in the land of Israel. I wanted to be rather in South Africa with people that were like-minded, that we could walk the same and that we could talk the same, that I wouldn't have to be so secluded, and I wouldn't have to be so silent and just not being able to share Abba's heart and Abba's word, but instead I was going to be silenced around the people that I was going to be put with. And so I was just looking forward to coming back, but he was going to show me that, well, just when you think that it's easy for you to come back, there's going to be a couple of storms, there's going to be a couple of things, and I'm going to close a door where you realize that South Africa is not where you belong. The land of Israel is where I've called you to, and you need to get your heart right. And you see, I was so hurt and I was so upset because everything of what I was seeing going on in this land, this was not what I envisioned. This was not what I was expecting. I didn't expect to come to a boot camp. But you see, that's part of the process. That's part of the process of what you've got to go through. You've got to birth in this land. You don't just come forth. This land is either going to crush you or it's going to raise you up. It's either going to crush you completely that you will become powder and there'll be nothing left of you, or it's either going to mold you and shape you for you to be able to become all that the Father has created you to be. Because this land is not easy. Everything in this land is not easy. You're up against systems, you're up against religious demons, you're up against so many things that make it so difficult just for you to be able to stand. And just when you think that you're standing, then you got someone else saying another thing to you, to say, well, did you actually think that you can come over here without you even having a paperwork or anything like that? And so it makes it a challenge. It makes it a challenge because every day you're facing the giants that are there. And this is the thing, you see, you're either going to let those giants torment you, which that's exactly what it was doing to me for a while. I have been allowing these things to get to me, and it's been a difficult process and a difficult time because you get to the place of where you're so overwhelmed by so many things that you go into this place and the enemy gets you exactly where he wants you to be, to make you feel like you've missed it, and to make you feel like Father's not really there, and he's not, he's not really there, and does he really care? You've given up these things. And there's even a pride in that. There's even a pride in saying, look at what I've given up for you, and this is what you do for me. And you see, in all things we need to weigh our hearts. In all things, the field where the king is in the field right now is in the field of our heart. And we have to go through these processes because just when we think we've arrived, just when we think, oh, you know what, I've nailed that one down. You come to realize that you've arrived nowhere. And you've come to realize that it's just more of your evil nature that gets revealed that still has not been overcome. But praise Abba Father that He doesn't leave us where we are, and that He's merciful, and that He's patient, and that He's so good because He takes us through the process. But because He knows that there is a greater work to do, and so He doesn't leave you where you are. He's got a process to take you through because He wants you to finish the race that He set before you. And so if we're going to go look at Jeremiah, I just want to look at Jeremiah because, everybody's talking about this. The king is in the field, and it's Ani Ledodi Vedodi Li, and I my beloved, and my beloved is mine. And, this is the month of when the king is in the field, and he's got eyes for us. But what is this all about? What is it all about? What is this time all about? Yes, this is a time of where we look to Him. But this is a time of when we are not to forget. It's a time of teshuvah. It's a time of return. It's a time of, the word alul in the Hebrew language means search. It's a time of when we need to search our hearts. And so I just want to read from Jeremiah so that we can look and see what the Father says about this flesh and what He says about our hearts. And so in Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 5 says, "Thus says Yahuwah, cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his arm, and whose heart turns away from him." Now, how many times do we put our trust, or do we, like, I'm going to put myself in this very place. I'm going to put myself in this very place because how many times I've done this myself, where I will be trusting man. Like, even for me to be able to stay here, I am going to try and trust man to be the one to help me to stay here. So I have to try and do something when it comes to going to see a rabbi, or going to see this, or going to see that. That is, you cannot put your trust in man. The same as for me to be able to be here, I have to trust Abba. Finances, I cannot be looking to man. And that is what so many ministries do. They have to sell their books, and they have to sell this, and they have to sell that, and they have to sell sermons, and they have to sell everything in order for them to be able to get the finances. Well, the Father said to me, "You will not prostitute yourself in any way." And He said to me right from the beginning that when He called me, He would raise up those that would be able to finance this ministry that I still say I got no ministry, but He knows what He's doing. Because He doesn't want me to put my trust, but He says, cursed is the man. Now that is a strong word. Cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his arm, and whose heart turns away from Him. So if He's our Father, He wants to be the one to trust us. He wants to be the one to lead us. He wants to be the one to guide us. He wants to be the one that we put our trust and our faith in, knowing that He's the one that goes before us. And yes, even when the enemy comes and speaks in our mind and says, and we can say, but Yah said. And that's the battle that I've had to wage, the battle that I've had to war, when I have had to understand Psalm 46, which we will read towards the end, of knowing when He finally came and said, "Natalia, you need to be still and know that I am Yah." And verse 6 says, "For he shall be like a shrub in the desert, and not see when good comes, and shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, and the salt land that is not inhabited." You see, when you get when you get into that place of when you start to trust the arm of the flesh, even the little things that the Father's doing for you, you cannot see them. Because all you're looking is for that big thing. And all you're looking is what you don't have. And what is, it's the same as with me. Instead of me seeing the blessing of what I have in order for me to be in this land and what the Father wants me to do, I was too busy looking at, but I don't have my husband with me. I don't have my children with me. And I want my husband to be here. And I want my children to be here. And so at the end of the day, you are not receiving the blessing of what He wants to give you. But that you will be like a shrub. You will be like the shrub in the desert and not see when good comes, and shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, a salt land that is not inhabited. and you see it becomes a dry place. And that's exactly what it is. When you are putting your trust in anything or anybody other than the Father, it becomes a parched, dry place. You are in a dry place. You are battling to hear Him. You are battling to receive the things that He has for you. And you cannot see His goodness in the little things. And I know I can speak because this is exactly where I was. I kept crying, saying, Father, why? Why? Why is it that I have to be here, my husband be there? It's so long that I've seen my children, and I know that especially one of my sons is going through a difficult time right now, and there's nothing that I want more than to be there for him. But no, he needs to turn to Abba. He needs to find Him now. He needs to be the one to be able to allow Him to do the work in him that needs to be done. I cannot be there for him anymore because he needs to find Abba for himself. And my family need to find Abba for themselves. I've always been the one there to carry them and to hold them and to help them and to hold this family together. Well, now I'm not there to do that, which means what? Which means that now they need to turn to Him. They need to find Him. Just like I need to be able to get rid of those idols that I have had in my heart of my family that I hold so dear. And I've had to understand that if this is my life, that I'm called as a missionary to go, then I'm going to have to lay down everything. And there will be no idols in my heart. And there will be nothing that I desire more than His presence and Him. Nothing, 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 nothing. Hear me today, people. There must be nothing, nothing in your life that you desire more than Him. Nothing. And I tell you now, if that's not the way that it is, we will be put through the fire until He takes that rightful place. And He will expose those things in our heart. Because you see, we're no different to those Israelites in the desert. We're no different. Man, we can worship Him with our lips, sing songs, and we can be bent over and pray the nicest prayers. But the only time that you will really know what is in your heart is when you put to that test. And that's why I'm saying, for some of us, we've written bigger tests. For some of us, we've written smaller tests. But I can tell you now, we're all going to write these tests. And even if we write them in different ways, we're all going to write them. Because at the end of the day, if we have to pledge an allegiance to the King, how do you pledge an allegiance to a king that you have not already died for? And so we continue to read. Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahuwah and whose trust is in Yahuwah. That's what it's about. Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahuwah and whose trust is in Yahuwah. We have to trust Him. We have to have faith in Him. We have to have eyes for Him alone. We have to understand that no matter how dark it is, no matter how difficult it is, no matter what we see around us, no matter the impossibilities that are there, we have to understand that if He spoke, if He said, then it shall be as He said, and we will trust Him to our dying day. And I tell you this today because you need to understand that this is the place that we're going to need to get to. And if we are not there, we better start crying out and saying, Father, help me, my King. Help me, cultivate that in me. And if it's not there, help me to be able to be cultivated. Because I tell you, there is great darkness that's coming. It says, for He shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river, and does not see when heat comes,
and his leaf shall be green. And in the year of drought he is not anxious, nor does he cease from yielding fruit. So there we go. You see, what is the speaking of? What is the speaking of? We are seeing, he's saying, we will be this tree. We have to bear the fruit. We have to be the tree. He is the vine, he's the gardener. He's the one that is having to sit and come. And he's going to be able to test this fruit. So he's going to have to put us through the fire so that we can become a tree that is going to have good fruit. Because people are going to need to come and feed from our table. People are going to have to come and drink from that which we have to give, where we have been pressed, the grape that's been pressed to bring out that pure grape juice that people need to drink. We are going to have to be the fruit that people are going to have to eat. And that's what we're leading up to in Sukkot. It's all about being able to sit at the table with the fruit of the land. And there's the fruit of the land. And we are going to have to sit at the table. And we are going to have to display this fruit for the people around us to be able to eat. We are going to have to provide shade for those that are going to be anxious and in turmoil. Because it says, for he shall be like a tree planted by the water. So we are drinking from that fountain. And as we drink from that fountain, which spreads its roots by the river and does not see when heat comes. So even though the heat is coming, even though there's difficulties all around us, it was like so interesting. Because on Sunday morning, my phone was going off the chart with all the messages that I'm receiving because of Hezbollah and the threats that Hezbollah is giving because they're wanting to go to war. And this land is sitting exactly at a place of when we are on the verge of war. We're always on the verge of war. Now, I don't worry too much about when Hamas makes a noise and when rockets go flying from the south. I don't get too disturbed. But when I start hearing Lebanon, and when I start hearing Syria, and when I start hearing Iran, Iraq, and when I start hearing about the north, then my ears are all there. Because we know that the word says that the war will come from the north, that we will be trampled from the north. And so then I perk my curiosity, because now I best be listening. But I was receiving all these messages from, my friends in the land that are intercessors, that are praying. I mean, they live in the land and they are intercessors praying in the land, and they're sending out all these messages. But I could hear a touch of fear in them. And it's like we're so busy looking at what the enemy is doing that we're forgetting what the Father is doing. And so, as I was receiving all these messages, and yes, my goodness, I think it was yesterday, Hezbollah fired. We had rockets come in the north from Lebanon. So we did. But you see, that morning, I was woken up, and I had the most amazing Saturday evening, which I will share a little bit as well, about Ronan having to come and visit. And we had the most amazing time. And exactly at the time of when he's there, the new moon is spotted where we enter into the month of Elul. And what is the month of Elul about? Blowing the shofar. And the shofar is sounding. And so my one intercessor friend sends me the message and says, Natalia, we need to blow the shofar to be able to dismantle the enemy. And, with all these speakings of wars. And I just started laughing. As that morning when I woke up, I did not wake up with a thought of, we are about to go to war, as that had been the rumors that had been going on since last weekend, not this weekend, the last weekend, since that last weekend, those were the rumors that had been going on. And by Monday, Father gave me Psalm 46. And that solidified something within me. Be still and know that I'm here. And the only thing that he told me to do is he said, speak to the kings and declare Psalm 2 and say the nations will, they will sit and they will inquire and they will make all their plans. But he laughs at them because he's in control. And that is when Father just told me, declare Psalm 2. And now, again, Hezbollah's really getting fired up and making threats and saying, we're going to wipe you out. And the intercessors are all up in arms and they're sending me all these messages. But in the meantime, I've only got one thing on my mind. The king is in the field. Oh my goodness, we have entered the month of Elul. This is the month of when my eyes are on my king. And I am not going to be looking at the things that are around me. Because yes, I have to be interceding and I have to be praying. That's why I'm in this land. But I turned around and sent a message to the intercessors and I said, isn't it amazing? The Father is so faithful. Because this is exactly, from this morning, those shofar blasts are sounding throughout the land of Eretz Israel. Why don't you stand in prayer? Together with the shofar sound that is going to sound over the next 40 days, there's going to be a shofar sound that's going to sound, resonate throughout the atmosphere within the nation of the Eretz Israel. And my goodness, instead of me being focused on what the enemy is doing and getting all worked up because, wow, the enemy is trying to make me feel like we've got, we got a fear. Instead, I'm looking at, you see, I'm not in the dry, parched land. I am now looking to Him because my trust and my faith is in Him. And I'm saying, hello. Those shofar sounds are blowing. Let us stand with those shofar sounds and say, Father, as these shofar sounds have to blow, I pray that there will be a sound resonating in the heavens that is going to start to bring your people back to you. Because you see, that's exactly what it's about. It's about people in this month turning back to Him. And yes, if it means it's going to take a war, if it means that it's going to take, this missiles coming in, for people in this month to teshuvah, because that's what this month is about. This month is about search. This month is about teshuvah. This month is about repent. This month is about preparing for the fall feast, preparing for Yom Teruah, preparing for understanding that there's going to be a shout, there's going to be a trumpet sound that's going to resonate throughout the heavens when our Messiah will eventually come. And that is why I'm saying, what are we doing? Are we going to be a tree that's going to be planted by the water, that's drinking from the rivers of living water that comes from His heart, so that we can spread our roots, and so that we don't need to worry about, even if the heat comes, the missiles are flying, the heat is coming, but our leaves shall be green. And in that year of drought, we will not be anxious, nor does He cease from yielding fruit. So even in this time, we will not cease from yielding the good fruit that we have of being able to give one water to drink when they need water to drink. Eat our fruit that we have, the fruit not of fear, but the fruit of faith, the fruit of one who trusts in their Eloah above all things, to know that even though the nations roar, He is on His throne. And He will do what needs to be done. And we need not fear for nothing. And if this is what it's going to have to take for people to bow their knee, then that's what it's going to have to take. Because listen to how prophetic it was. as we were entering, it was so amazing because remember I sent a message and I said Ronan was here the Shabbat before, and already at that Shabbat and already at that time there had been a lot of talk of war and missiles and all of this that had been going on. And Ronan was here, and Father just told me to share with him, and I have not been in a position that I was even willing to share with anybody or even speak or anything for that matter. But the Father started to raise something up within me to say, Natalia, you cannot be silent. This man needs to be spoken to. He's been surrounded by many people, but he needs the truth that you carry. And so anyway, each one of us has got a different fruit. We not all got the same fruit to give. We all like different fruit. And so anyway, I started speaking to him. Then I knew that I had invited him to be able to come over, and I said that I would confirm with him. So anyway, Friday I phoned him and I said, last week Friday I phoned him and I said, Ronan, is it possible that you could maybe come Sunday evening, because we wanted to have it Sunday, because we thought, Shabbat, we're just coming back from Jerusalem, because we had been in Jerusalem for Monday. We'd left, we were in Tel Aviv, and then from there we left for Jerusalem, and that was where my husband and I were the last couple of days, because he wanted to be in Jerusalem and spend time there. And then for him to be able to fly out early Friday morning. And so anyway, so I phoned Ronan, and so I thought, look, we only just driving back. We only got back late. It was like, I think 4:30, whatever. And I thought, well, you know what? Now we haven't been home for a week, and it's not. I had bought a few things and everything, so that we could, if we were to have Ronan, that I went and I bought a few things, but I thought, no, look, you know what, it's better to just have him Sunday, and that's just the way it is. So anyway, it so happened that he couldn't come Sunday, and he said, no, he's going to come Saturday evening, and I thought, I wasn't really in the mood, because, I just wanted quiet time on the Shabbat, and I didn't want to have to, but I thought, okay, fine, no problem. But you see, Father has a plan in everything. He has a plan in everything. And anyway, Saturday morning, Elsie woke up. She was not feeling well, and I prepared everything. And as I was preparing everything for Ronan to come, I'm just spending time with Abba, and Abba had told me that he was to watch I Can Only Imagine, that movie, I Can Only Imagine. Because it ties in a lot with his life story and what he's had to go through, and the fact that he also writes songs and plays music, but it's very much in the dark, in the quiet, and he's in a difficult place. And this is a Jewish man who doesn't even know, he's a man that basically, these were his words, you Christians have Jesus, and we have Hashem. We've got Abba Father. And that's the way he sees it. Because he's surrounded by believers, but more believers that are trying to give him a gospel of a Jesus, which is not the full gospel. So anyway, as I sat, we watched the movie. He came and we had dinner together. Elsie was in bed with fever, and I had to sit alone with Ronan and just shared, and he was very intrigued why I'm vegetarian, and then I explained to him about me being healed of cancer, and it was just a lot of testimonies that I was being able to give him. You see, you overcome through the power of the blood and the word of your testimony, of your witness.
And so I'm giving him testimony, and he's like so overwhelmed that, wow, that Yah can talk, and that Yah can heal. And he doesn't understand this, but he thinks it's like so inspiring. And then we watched the movie. And as we watched the movie, when the movie finished, it's so powerful, you know, how this man went through this transformation, how, you know, the man that's from Mercy Me, the band, you know, once again, we hear the music, beautiful song, I can only imagine, but nobody knows the story behind the pressing that went through in that man's life and what he had to go through and how difficult it was for him and everything that he had to endure. And so he watches all of this, and when it ends, he is like in awe, and there's a silence. And I don't know what to say, but the Father just presses it on my heart. And now by this time, we have had reports come in that the new moon has been sighted, and because I wasn't able to go sight the new moon because I was busy with Ronan, and we had reports that the new moon had been sighted and that we'd entered into the month of Elul, which is this month of Teshuvah. And without me even thinking, as I'm sitting there, Ronan standing in front of me, and I don't know what all to say now, you know, this movie's just finished, he's like overwhelmed, it's so inspirational, and he's connecting with the movie, and all of a sudden, I say to him, Ronan, I want to ask you for forgiveness. And now he's looking at me a bit strange. He said, for what? I said, I want to ask for forgiveness on behalf of Christians, on behalf of believers around the world. I want to stand in the gap for every Christian, for every believer around the world that has misrepresented your Messiah. And he says, no, it's no problem. I said, no, hear me out. He says, oh, like I represent the Jewish people. I said, yes, you represent a nation. You represent the Jewish people. And here I was, not even realizing that this is Teshuvah. This is the month of Elul that we've just entered into. When the king is in the field, and the king wants to touch the heart of his people in this nation, and in the nations of the world, and specifically his Jewish people, because they are entering in the season. And here I am, repenting to this man and saying, please forgive us. Forgive us for misrepresenting a Jesus to you. We've given you a Messiah that was void of the things that you hold so dear. And that is why you portray him as being another God. And that is why you've seen him as another God. And that is why you have not accepted him. Because we have not portrayed him as your Messiah. But we have portrayed him as one who is a pork-eating, law-breaking, not Sabbath-keeping Messiah that is going to lead you away from deep truths that you know. I mean, this man comes from, a generation of rabbis, but he's at the place that doesn't follow anything. And I turned around and I said to him, wouldn't it be unfair of Abba Father to give us a Messiah that would be able to give us so many miracles and answer our prayers when we cry and change us to become better people, but he wouldn't do that for you? And he looked at me and he said, that's exactly what I've been thinking when I was watching this movie. I said, but you see, the thing is,
He is your Messiah. But we have presented him in a package that's made him counterfeit. And for that, I apologize. I said he never came to do away with any Torah. Because he says, he says that not one yud or one tittle will be done away from the Torah until all is fulfilled. And until heaven and earth passes away, none of this will pass away. And so at the end of the day, I'm sorry if that's how they've represented him. People have represented him to you, and that has made you believe that you have a false Messiah. It's a false Messiah. And how precious it was the following morning. I didn't even think of it, but when he was going to leave, I said to him, Ronan, we have just entered into the month of Elul. We have entered into the new month. I said, and this is the month of Teshuvah. And he was quite oblivious because he's not religious. So because he's not religious, he's not doing any of these religious things. And I said to him, but this is a month of when we would be drawing closer to Hashem, to the Father. Why? Because at the end of the day, we're entering into the time of Yom Teruah, of what you understand as being Rosh Hashanah. And it's a time of the feasts that we're coming into now, which are the 4 feasts, which are very significant. And I briefly just explained to him, you see, this is when we would have received, the 4th feast would have been when we would have received the Spirit. I said, and now we need to draw close to him. We need to cry out to him. We need to call on him. And at the end of the day, if we go to 1 John 4 verse 10, let's go there quickly, because this is what I had shared with him, which was so, for him to understand. 1 John 4 verse 10. And it says, in this is love, not that we loved Elul, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be an anointed offering for our sins. So he sent Messiah Yeshua to be an offering for our sins. Because it's like I explained to him, where is the altar that you can go and do a sacrifice now for sins? That's why they want to build a temple. Because there is no altar that you can sacrifice for sins. But he gave us Yeshua as a gift. He chose, in this is love, that not we loved him, but he loved us. So he loves us, and he sent us because of his love for us. And that's what I was sharing with him. It's his love for us, not anything that we will have done. But his love for us, he gave us Messiah Yeshua, and then gave us his Ruach, so that we may be able to come back to that which we've fallen away from, so that we can make teshuvah, so that we can cry out to him. And so Abba is so faithful, because even last Shabbat, not this one, the one before, just after he'd been at our house on Sunday morning, I was spending time with Abba, and he was giving me all this Hebrew music. And this Hebrew music is all about coming back to the Father, all about, wow, the lyrics are just awesome, and it's all sung in Hebrew, which is even more powerful for him to understand. And the Father said, as you're gathering this music, you're going to send it then to Ronan. And so in this month, I will be sending him this music that's going to be able to help him to draw closer to Yahuwah, his Father, who's crying for him. And like he's crying for him, he's crying for how many in this nation? And you see, if our fruit is not cultivated, if we do not go through the fire, we will not be able to give water to the people that need it in the hour of when it's needed to be given. We would not. Because why? Because we are so busy in this place of barrenness because we're trusting in flesh and in the arm of the flesh. And that's what's going to happen in this nation. Because in this nation, because they trust in the IDF, and they're trusting in America, and they're trusting in the nations that are supposed to be there for their aid, they're going to go through many things. And so that is why we need to get to a place of understanding that the Father is taking us through the fire, because if the Father didn't take me through the fire, I wouldn't be able to be ministering to Ronan, because I wasn't in that place. I was not in that place to minister to him, because I was in my own caught up in my own process of woe is me. But it's okay for us to be there. The thing is, we're not to stay there, because in that place he teaches us many things. In that place our eyes are open to many things. I can never take people where I've never been. I always say to people, I can never take you where I've never been. I am not sitting here giving you messages because I've arrived. I'm not giving you messages because I'm perfect. No, I'm not. And I will share my desert experiences with you for you to understand that you are so normal when you go through these things. You are so normal when you have this lack of faith, because we all go through it. Please do not put people on pedestals and think, oh wow, they are so anointed and so appointed. No, they're not. No, they're flesh and blood like you are. And they are susceptible to every single trial and every single test that you are. Because nobody has arrived. And so that is why when I woke up Sunday morning, and there's a war cry going on throughout this nation, I am so excited, because, wow, Abba has just done the most prophetic work, that as we're entering into the new season, as we've just entered into the new season, there's a repentance that's going forth to say, something's going to go down and something's going to raise up. What's going to go down is this counterfeit religious spirit that has kept these people blinded and bound in a Christianity that has given them a Jesus that is so far from what they understand according to their word. And now there's going to be truth that's going to come forth in the innermost parts, that's going to start to reveal to them a Yeshua that is their Messiah, that is one of them, that is a Hebrew like they are, that kept everything that was written in this word. But you see, that's the place that the Father has had to raise me up to say, you know, there's a lot of talk that goes and a lot of things that are out there, and people that will try and keep us from walking in the path that the Father has put us on. And I'm here to say to you, do not allow anything or anyone to take you from the path that He's put you on. If He's put you on this path, do not look to the left, do not look to the right, do not look behind, but look ahead. Because in these last days, many things are going to come to say, oh, but you know, this is not right because, you know, of this or that or that or that. Well, you know what? I am not going to listen, because the Father put me on a path of where I'm supposed to keep ways of Torah, because I have understood it's His instructions. Man calls it a law, but he calls it instructions. And there's a huge difference between a law and an instruction. These are instructions for holy living. These are instructions for set-apart living. And we are now coming into a time where those that He's going to raise up is going to start preaching the kingdom. And the kingdom is not void of that. The kingdom is the fullness of that. And that's why I was able to stand and say to a Jewish man, I'm sorry. Because for more than 2,000 years, the only reason why they have not received their Messiah is because this so-called Jesus that they are hearing about is one that has started another religion, is one that killed 6 million Jews, is one that persecuted and killed how many in the Inquisition, and they want nothing to do with Him. And now is the time that we are going to start to present to them a Messiah, a true Messiah, one who is one with His people. And that is why the King is in the field right now amongst His remnant people and saying, I need you to be able to look within your heart. I need you to be able to come and see what is there, because you see, the number 9, verse 9 in Jeremiah 17 verse 9 says, the heart is crooked above all and desperately sick. Who shall know it? I, Yahuwah, search the heart. I try the kidneys and give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds. So you see, what is the fruit of our deeds? And that's what we need to look at. Do we have the fruit of the Spirit, or do we have the fruit of the flesh? And that is why He's in the field and He is searching the fruit of our hearts, because we need to get this fruit ready for what's going to come now in these 4 feasts. And so we need to understand what this is about. And that's why we will read in John chapter 15. Let's go to John chapter 15. He says, I am the vine, and my Father's the gardener. So you see, Yeshua is that vine, but Abba Father is the one who's going to come and cut. Every branch in me that bears no fruit, He takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, He prunes so that it bears more fruit. So are we going through the fire? Are we going through pruning? Are we going through difficulty? He wants us to bear even more fruit, so that we will be like those that will not put their trust in the flesh and in the arm of the flesh when the trials and the difficult times come, but that we will be that tree planted by the river that is going to be able to stand, that is going to be able to give shade, that's going to be able to give fruit to a people that are going to be anxious. But we will be anxious for nothing. So even though war is on the horizon, even though war is being spoken, let us see what is Abba Father doing in this time, in this land. Shofar sounds are blowing. Praise Abba Father. Let us do a cry and say, Father, as the shofar sound starts to blow, bring a repentance, bring a true repentance. Bring people to a place of where they can get rid of these religious demons that have kept them captive for so long, and let them start to hear your heartbeat. Let them start to come back to you. And that's why I'm saying it's not just the fruit of the things that we do, but it's the fruit of those things that have kept us captive because of our mindsets, of our religious mindsets that have kept us captive too. That is so important that we can get away from. And it says, you are already clean because of the word which I've spoken to you. So what is it that washes us? It's the washing of the word. It's we keep the word. It's the word, the word, the word, the word. This word is the only thing that we can stand by. That's why when I stand and I read something and I receive something, I've got to go back to the word to say, is this what the word says? Because people will come with nice ideas. And they will say, oh, but Yeshua spoke and Yeshua said. But let's go back to the Word and what the Word says. Because the Word is what we stand by. And it says, stay in me, and I stay in you. As the branch is unable to bear fruit of itself, unless it stays in the vine, so neither you, unless you stay in me. So you see, we need to stay in Him. We need to stay in what He says. We need to stay in what He shows. We need to stay in His Word. We need to stay in when the enemy comes, like he was speaking those things in my ear. And Yeshua was combating him by saying, but it is written, but it says, this is what it says. We can only stand by what is written. And the conviction of our heart by the testimonies of what we've had to go through. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who stays in me and I in him, he bears much fruit. Because without me, you are able to do naught. So do you see? It comes back to cursed is the man who puts his trust in the flesh and in the arm of the flesh. He will receive nothing from Abba Father. If anyone does not stay in me, he is thrown away as a branch and dries up. And they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burnt. So if we do not stay in him, that's why I'm saying this is a full package. And I've been saying this, I'm like a broken record already. Because why am I a broken record? Because people either want to take you one way or they want to take you another. It's a full package. It's the Word, which is this Word from Genesis to Revelation. It's the Word. We cannot just take the New Testament and say, well, now the Old Testament is done away with. It's the Old Testament. No, as far as I'm concerned, Yeshua said, lest you build your house on a solid foundation, it's not going to stand. So, like when I asked my husband and I said to him, babes, what does the Torah mean to you? And he said, that's the foundation. And if we don't have a foundation, what do we have to stand on? If we do not understand what the Father did with the Israelites in the wilderness and why did He not allow them to enter in, we are not going to understand that when the day comes that we think we're going to enter in and we're not going to enter in either. Because these are the instructions, these are the trials and the tests that He put them through so that we may learn. These are the foundations that we have by which we can be able to learn from so that we do not make the same mistakes. And so when Yeshua was speaking, let's go and see. I'm all over the place here, but this wasn't part of the plan, but He's telling me it's part of the plan. So I prayed and said, Father, you speak what you want to speak. So let Him speak what He wants to speak. Here we go. So let's just go where it says, seeing as though we are talking about fruit. So let's read from Matthew chapter 7 from verses 14. Because the gate is narrow. Okay, from verse 13. Enter through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction. And there are many who enter through it. Because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed. Thlipsis. It's persecution. It's going to be pressure. It's going to be a fire. It's going to be that process that we've been going through, this fire that which leads to life, and there are few who find it. You see, the more we go through the hard press, the more we go through the fire, the more we go through the purification, the more we allow the Father to be able to take us through that fire, to prune us, to cut away those dead branches, to cut away those religious mindsets that we have, to cut away those things of our character that don't quite line up with His Word. The more He comes and prunes us. It's that hard press. It's the pruning. It's the cutting away. It's the fire of the refining of the gold being purified so that it can come out, and so that the gardener himself, Abba Yahuwah, can see his reflection through us. He needs to see himself through us, so that when those see us, and we will look at that in a little bit more detail. And it says, and there are many who enter in through it. Because narrow is the gate and the way is hard pressed, which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Why? Why few? Why few? Because you see, for you to finally come to truth, for you to finally come to the place of where He wants you to be, for you to finally enter through that narrow gate, it's only few, because many are not going to allow the flipses of the persecution and the fire that we need to go through to be able to get to the other side, because most of us would want to pray it away. I mean, I have cried many tears, and I have asked many why, and my why got me nowhere. My why just got me going through a little bit deeper. My why got me going a little bit more hard-pressed. My why just allowed the enemy to take me more to the cleaners, as opposed to embracing and saying, okay, Father, I surrender. Here I am, Father, I surrender all. Oh, we can sing that song, I surrender all. But when the time comes, do we really surrender all? Not without pressure. Ask me. Not without pressure. Yeshua himself had to sweat drops of blood to be able to go through what he had to go through. No one is greater than their master. And it says, but beware of false prophets who come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are savage wolves. By their fruits you will know them. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? So every good tree yields good fruit. You see, are we going to put our trust in the flesh and the arm of the flesh, like we started in Jeremiah 17? That it's cursed, and you will be like a dry bush in the parched land that will see no water, that will see no good thing, that only sees woe is me? Or every good tree yields good fruit, but a rotten tree yields wicked fruit. So at the end of the day, that's why I'm saying the King is in the field, and he's wanting to be able to cultivate our heart to yield this fruit, because you need to understand the fruit that needs to come forth is what the nations are going to need in this time, and it's got to be good fruit, and that is going to be made up of his glory that needs to be revealed to a people, where you can be that tree planted by the water that's going to be able to give shield for shade. Believe me, you need the shade. I'm always looking for every tree that I can walk down the road, and I cross the road to this side and that side just to try and find the shade of the trees, because it's so hot. And it says, a good tree is unable to yield wicked fruit, and a rotten tree to yield good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then by their fruit you shall know them. Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, shall enter into the reign of the heavens, but he who is doing the desire of my Father in the heavens. So you see, at the end of the day, it's all about doing the Father's will. And that is why we have to be able to go through this fire, because he's got to birth his purposes and his plans. And it's not what I want, it's what he wants. And it's not what I think, it's what he thinks. And it's not my understanding of saying, oh, this is like this and this is like that, and therefore it's like this. No. He has his way. This is his pattern. This is what he's put from the beginning. Every prophet that is a true prophet of Yahuwah is going to speak the same message. There's not a different message. It's the same message. We have different anointings, but the message is to bring the people back to the Father and bring the people back to the Father's ways. Many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done many mighty works in your name? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you, depart from me, you who work lawlessness. And that lawlessness, that word is anomia, which means one without Torah. And so there's many people prophesying many things, many people saying many things. And they're going to do great exploits. But at the end of the day, the message that's coming now is one that needs to be able to return back to the full kingdom. And the kingdom has to do with a full package that has to do with the Spirit and the truth. Moshe, that gave us the Torah. And Elijah representing the Ruach. And together, in the book of Revelation, they were singing the song of Moses. In Malachi, it talks about, do not forget the fathers, turning the hearts of the fathers back to the children. Oh, I'm all over the place today. Let's just quickly go look at that. Let's go look at it in Malachi. Because this is what we need to understand. The fire is coming for what? For look, the day shall come burning. I'm reading Malachi chapter 4 from verse 1. For look, the day shall come burning like a furnace, and all the proud and every wrongdoer shall be stubble. And the day that shall come shall burn them up, said Yahuwah of hosts, which leaves to them neither root nor branch. But to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings. And you shall go out and leap for joy like calves from the stall. And you shall trample the wrongdoers, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet on the day that I do this, says Yahuwah of hosts. Remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, which I commanded in Horeb, for all Israel, laws and right rulings. See, I'm sending you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and awesome day of Yahuwah. And ye shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with utter destruction. So he's got to turn the hearts of the children back to the fathers of Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And the hearts of the father back to the children. And so, even in this land, his people are keeping Talmudic ways, but they don't necessarily follow 100% the way that it is, the Torah, the way that it was given us. They don't, because they've added so many things to it. And that is why I'm saying we are now entering a time where the restoration of the kingdom needs to come. And that is what we need to understand. Because I need you to understand, because that is the word that is going to go forth for this Yom Teruah. There is a people that is going to raise up now with the spirit of Elijah, that have been through the fire, that have been scorched in the fire. And so we carry on. And it says, and there I shall declare to them, I never knew you, depart from me. So we're back in Matthew chapter 7. So he says, many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have I not prophesied in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done many works? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you, depart from me, you who work lawlessness. Anomia. One without Torah. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them shall be like a wise man who built his house on a rock. Now we're getting to that foundation. And the rain came down, and the floods came, And the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. So you see, how do you separate Yeshua from the foundation of Torah? How? How do you separate him? How? They are one. The foundation is our instructions that we're going to need to adhere to stand in these last days. It's what we need to return back to. And that's why the rain's going to come, the floods are going to come. This is all part of the things, the destruction that's going to come. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them shall be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. So do we want to be a foolish man that built our house on the sand? Listening to what man says? Listening to the flesh and to the arm of the flesh and putting our trust and faith in the arm of the flesh? Or are we going to listen to him and what he says and what his word says and stand by this word no matter what? That's what we're going to need to do, because I know that's the struggle that I've been in, where I was listening to the voice of man, and I was listening to the voice of reasoning, and I was listening to the voice of the enemy telling me, you can't do this. Well, I've got news for him. Praise the Father, because when I come up and when I raise up, which the Father has raised me up, I am not going to be silent. I am not going to be silent. I have been silenced, but I will not be silent. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them shall be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. So are we going to have a foundation by which we can stand on? Or are we going to get rid of the foundation because of some new thing that is out there? And it came to be that when Yeshua had ended these words, that the people were astonished at his teaching. For he was teaching them as one who possesses authority, not as the scribes. So we need to understand that the Father is going to raise up a company of people now that is going to be able to have to speak with authority. His authority that has been given. No man acquires that. No man acquires that authority. Oh my goodness, all I know is that there's only just the prophetic word that keeps coming my way. And that is that Father wants to take you to a higher place. You are in this because Father wants to take you to a high level. Father wants to give you a higher authority. But you see, in order for us to be able to walk in that higher authority, it's going to have to take a lot of stripping. It's going to have to take a lot of storms. It's going to have to take a lot of fire. It's going to have to take a lot of surrendering. So we need to understand today there is no anointing without a purging, without a fire. And we are not going to be able to stand if we don't get tested and trialed. It's easy to say, yes, I worship him. It's another to be able to be put in that test to see if you truly do. So, yeah, we see that we have to be able to get our tree that needs to be yielding good fruit